Today we're going to be talking about the Flux Raider. You know, I don't see a lot of people that have really given it a fair shake. So today on Grand Thumb, we're going to be giving the Flux Raider a fair shake. Today on Grand Thumb.
Exit motion.
But before we get into it, we have to thank the biggest sponsor of the channel, who's whom?
Snorting Doors Institute.
The Sonoran Desert Institute. If you're looking to get your start in gunsmithing, they are the people to go to. And who can we not forget, Micah?
Primary arms for everything, really.
Yeah, all the good optics. We love them so much. Isn't that right, Charles?
Yeah, you can put in discount code Grand Ram Ranch and see what happens.
That's not real. And, of course, if you want to get better at shooting, what should you be doing?
Dry fire.
Absolutely. Mantis, it's going to turn your gun into a dry fire machine. Go and check them out. It's going to make you way better. We love them, and we cannot thank Mantis enough. And, of course, unlike the TV you're watching this on, or the camera we're filming this on, AAC ammunition is made in the US of A. Using all AAC ammunition today. Go and check them out. And with all that being said, talk is cheap and ammunition is what, Charles?
Provided by Norma.
So right here we have the Flux Raider. The question is, what is a Flux Raider? A little bit confusing. So it's actually pretty simple. Essentially what you're doing is replacing the frame on a P320 or Sig Sauer P320. So as you can see right here, we do have a Sig Sauer P320. And then on the frame itself, all you do is put in the 6-hour fire control unit and you have yourself kind of a whole new weapon right here. So a very interesting concept, and what's I think more compelling is how inexpensive it is. So a lot of your pistol caliber carbines, the entry fee is quite high. Think something nice like the SP5K from HK or the TP9. With this, you're about $500 for the Flux Raider with another, $500-ish for a SIG P320. So I think it's a very compelling platform due to the fact that you're getting in on what I would think is a pretty good PCC. Stay tuned for the review for a very cheap price. But with all that being said, we can't really prove that to you without doing what, Micah?
Shooting it.
Shooting it, doing drills, and specifically comparing it to other pistol caliber weapons. Now today, we are very lucky that we have a lot of guest stars. Yeah, first up we have Aaron. Basically Grand Thumb like 1.1.
But better.
Next up we have our HR rep from Walter Sobchak Security. Can you show us your hat really quick?
Yeah, I just got my transmission rebuilt on my Ford F350. Common issue. And the transmission shop, called Portland Tranny, they gave me a merch. Only $3,500 hat, but I'm gonna run it for a while.
All right, first drill, I am the main character. We'll be doing my favorite drill, which is what, Micah?
Bill drill.
Bill drill. That is 7 yards, 6 rounds, A zone. We'll each be doing it and seeing who can do best.
Stand by. 173.
We'll stutter.
First shot 7-0.
Stand by. 140. Smoked me. Shoot ready. Stand by. Woo, 162.
Not good enough.
Walter Sobchak Security. Stand by. 7199.
Fucking slide. Can I do that again?
Good.
No.
Will we redos? No.
I mean, I didn't get a redo. I was killing it.
My thumb was riding the slide, bro.
Your 6 shots were 179. And Micah,
I didn't know I was gonna go.
of course, you've done a review on the Flux Raider. You should,
I
you
did.
should be the best of all of
I
us.
actually love the Flux Raider. Yep.
Stand by.
Ah, the trigger gets you.
160.
Yeah, Charles crushed us by a mile.
Yeah,
Okay,
he did.
Charles, you're up. What's the next drill?
Let's do Mozambique.
We got steel out here too. Like you can do anything.
Okay. Yeah, let's actually do a Mozambique.
Stand by.
Ah, missed.
Airball. Airballed the
Hey,
head.
Jordan.
Hey, what do you call it when you miss the head? Is it still Mozambique?
No, we were gonna start doing redos.
Stand by.
Nice.
Woohoo! 131. Good job.
Sure, are you ready?
Yeah.
Stand by. 127. Damn. Those are 2-7.
Walter Sobchak.
Highball.
Highball.
125.
Micah.
Stand by. Hide overboard.
Fastest. What are we doing penalty for Charlie?
Add a second.
It's not one
second?
It's not 1 second.
It's usually 0.1.
It's a 1.17.
So it'd be 1.27 with this Charlie, which match us together.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, high five.
Yeah.
right here we have the Flux Raider. This is going to be the first of the recoil tests. We're going to be doing a bill drill. It's the best way, I think, to control recoil and show control of recoil through a string of fire.
Shooter ready?
Yep.
Stand by. Here's time on that.
183.
183.
Cool. Next up, we'll have the MP5K, which it should be noted these don't have the nicest triggers compared to Flux Raider, although this trigger has been worked over. So not as nice of a trigger, way less recoil. That being said, it does weigh well over double, so that kind of makes sense.
245. Getting to that safety of the pain, huh?
Yeah, it sure is. That's more the fact that I just haven't been running the MP5 lately. Next up, we have the TP9. This is about 8 ounces heavier than the Flux Raider, but costs a lot more, and the trigger is a lot worse. So we'll see how this guy works.
Stand by.
Yeah.
207.
Yeah, the MP5K, the roller delayed systems in general are just very smooth.
And that's with a suppressor.
Yeah, and it does have a suppressor, and it's heavier, so it does make sense. Okay, with all those things in place, let's get into the black screen.
This video is sponsored by Americana Pipe Dream. Americana Pipe Dream. Buy a surplus for less than the government paid for it. That means steal from the government. Americana Pipe Dream, they sell military surplus knives, night vision, everything. They got in trouble with several countries for selling the camo that wasn't supposed to be sold. They're in the news. Right now they have tons of British CAC knives and British MTP. Go check it out. If you use the discount code BUSSIN, BUSSIN, you get 10% off of everything except for night vision. So that's it with Americana Pipe Dream. Big thank you to them for sponsoring the video. Let's get back to it.
Ladies, gentlemen, my often forgotten, but most certainly not by me, Submachine Guns, welcome to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about a very interesting little platform. This is going to be the Flux Raider. I'll be honest, when it first came out, I wasn't sure what the deal was. I kind of dismissed it. I was like, what am I going to be doing? Kick flipping out of a helicopter with a skateboard to CQB? It seemed pointless to me. I didn't understand what the purpose was, and it took a lot of time for me to understand the niche that it fell into, and also for it to be somewhat used within SOCOM and within the unit. There's a lot that we have to say about the Flux Raider, so stay tuned as we talk about a very interesting little platform. POV, you're in my house. So right here, Mike is going to pop up a photo of a P320, a SIG M17, a SIG M18. I'm just trying to make his life hard. But the point is, all we're doing with the Flux Raiders, people behind me laugh, is we're taking the slide and the fire control unit from a P320 or an M17, and we're replacing the frame. So this frame now adds a lot more functionality. As you can see, we have both the grip, we have a front magazine holder, we have a stock or a brace. It makes it into a much different platform. And I think perhaps what makes the Flux Raider so compelling is in a world where you have a lot of PCC options from like MP5Ks to TP9s and many others. The Flux Raider, being a kind of pistol caliber carbine, ends up falling into a very inexpensive category for what you end up getting. And that's what we're going to be taking a look at, both the functionality, how good is it, what is good about it, what is bad about it, and with cost considered, why you might or might not want to get it. So before we get into everything, we of course have to do our full disclosure. What is our relationship with Flux Defense? I can't stop. And all that goodness. So they have given us the Raider X as well as the older MP17s. We of course have talked with the owner and all that goodness. Now, not every company, but a lot of companies are very quick when we're doing reviews to be like, hey, what you're saying is damaging to our brand, blah, blah, blah. Flux Defense falls into that cool category where they're like, hey, we don't care what you say, just give us an honest review. We don't want to have a shill. Awesome. Not that they pay me or anything like that, but that's where it falls when it comes to Flux Defense and with the Flux Raider. So we're very excited to do the review because we're always going to be honest, but it's kind of nice when they want us to be as honest as possible. So what we're going to do right here is I'm going to show you what it looks like broken down. So we have our slide, which comes right off. That is just from a SIG Legion right there. Very nice little pistol upper. And then of course we have our fire control unit. So what's nice is you can simply pop out the slide stop right here. as Micah watches me struggle with this on editing. And then we get to pop out a very dirty fire control unit. So the fire control unit from the 320s are, of course, changeable to different types of grip modules. So what they realized over at Flux Defense was, hey, that would be pretty cool because we can make an entire really cool frame for this. This, of course, is a non-serialized unit. That means you can simply buy this and throw your fire control unit right into it. So if you have a SIG P320, well, there you have it. You are good to go. All right, so we pop that guy in. Go ahead and put in our slide stop right here, and that is going to keep the unit in place. Then we simply put our slide on, and we have for ourselves a nice Flux Raider. So it's a very simple thing to do. It takes maybe a minute to take care of, and then you have yourself a very different system that is also easily swappable. So if you want to go back to your pistol, it is very easy to do. Some of the first things we're going to talk about is going to be both weight and price. So what's cool is if you already have a 320, well, it kind of doesn't factor in. If you don't have a 320, you're paying anywhere from $500 to $700, maybe even more if you're getting a really fancy model like we have right here. And then with the Flux Raider, you're paying around $500-ish, a little bit more. So you have a pistol caliber carbine for around $1,000, maybe a little bit under, maybe a little bit over. Now you compare this with many of the other pistol caliber carbines that are already out there, such as the TP9. You're typically sitting between 1.5 to 2K, even maybe a little bit more if you're getting a more Gucci model, or say the Heckler & Koch SP5K, or if you're getting a Zenith model or what have you. Point is, you're paying anywhere from a 1.7 all the way up to $3,000 to $4,000 for one of these guys. So when you consider the alternatives, the Flux Raider becomes a little bit more tantalizing given the fact that it costs so little. Now, we also compare the weight. So the weight of this guy assembled, now we have a lot of shit on this guy right here, but the typical weight of the Flux Raider is gonna be around 40 ounces. Now, if we compare that with something like the TP9, which I think is most comparable, we have about 49 ounces. And then if we compare that to something like the MP5K, we have 70 ounces, which is much heavier. So in terms of price, we have a much cheaper option. In terms of weight, we have a much lighter system. The question is, what are the compromises that are made there? How does this thing actually work? How does it shoot? How are the controls? How does everything come together? Well, I'm glad you asked. We're going to get into it right now. So when we're talking about the Flux Raider, we're going to go ahead and start, as we always do. It's going to be tip to butt on this guy and going all the way through the system and talking about how everything comes together and how everything works, what's good and what's bad. Now, starting off with the slide. Obviously, the functionality of the Flux Raider is going to be heavily dependent on the type of slide that you use. Right here on our particular Flux Raider, we do have a SIG AXG Legion, which is integrally comped. It was extremely nice to have on this weapon because it really helped tame any type of recoil that the system could possibly have. Not that it really has much, it is 9mm, LOL. So it worked absolutely A-okay. Now, in addition to that, you can see that this particular model that we have right here, we kind of have modified to be permanently on this. What I mean by that is we have replaced the front sight on this guy with the top charging handle. So if I want to charge it in any way, I can simply grab onto the top. And the reason we use the top and not the side charging module is that we do have an NGOL on the side as well as the X300. So in this configuration, it's not nearly as usable as a pistol, in addition to the fact that you typically don't have any type of optic mount on there due to the fact that that optic would interfere with our optic on the Flux Raider itself. So there are a couple limitations when it comes to using the Flux Raider and swapping it from a pistol onto this platform itself, mostly being that if you're gonna be actively doing that, you're not gonna be able to really run an optic on there, or you're gonna be pulling it off and on, which I don't recommend. So there are certainly some things that aren't as good. It's not as swappable as maybe some other systems are, such as B&T or many others that are out there. But I do find this a much more compelling system, a much more comfortable system to use, and we'll be talking about that in the very near future. Now, if we take a look at Micah's really quickly, he is using the agency slide that was specifically made for the Flux Raider. As you can see on his particular one, it is much more minimalistic, and we have that side charger right there, which I think is much easier to use overall. So if you don't want to have any type of laser AV module, use it under night vision or anything like that, well then that side charger works much better. Now, we also have a agency slide. We do have ours with the threaded barrel. We do have a resilient suppressor on here. Now, and this is where a problem of the Flux Raider kind of rears its head. And that is when it comes to suppression of a weapon, I believe that the TP9 and the MP5K are much easier weapons to suppress. Now, why is that the case? Well, it comes down to the operating mechanism. The Flux Raider is simply using a pistol slide. It's simply a pistol. So we have a short recoil action mechanism, which, if you're going to use a suppressor, is going to rely on some type of Nielsen device. You can see right there how that's popping open. That is what's called a booster. It helps counteract the recoil of the short action system to ensure that the entire system can cycle, because when you throw a bunch of weight out there on a pistol, it really screws with the functionality of the weapon. Here's the problem. Pistol suppressors really aren't all that great. So in the case of ours, we had a lot of issues with ours. That's not a problem with the Flux Raider. That is more a SIG problem. That is more a suppressor problem. I have no problems with the Brazilian suppressor. It's just the SIG didn't end up really liking a lot of the different type of suppressors that we had, from Surefire to Brazilian to anything. So a further problem with that is that pistol suppressors do have a tendency, due to the Nielsen device, to begin to chug down and slow down as that grit, as the carbon begins to build up in both the Nielsen device as well as the operating mechanism of the pistol, severely slowing it down. Now we compare that to something like a B&T TP9, which is a straight blowback system, much more reliable, still very dirty. However, the system is very robust. So when you have a suppressor on there, it has a tendency to not slow down nearly as fast as a pistol suppressor would. And when we bring in Teutonic engineering from the Germans, looking to conquer the world once again, we have a system that will rarely, if ever, shut down due to the suppressor on there. So if you're looking to run a suppressor on your Flux Raider 24/7, or on your PCC in general, I do not believe that the Flux Raider is the best system for this. I'm sure some people will say, hey, my Flux Raiders run 80 million rounds with a suppressor on there. Awesome. I haven't seen that to be the case in many of the examples that we've gotten our hands on at this point in time. However, as a straight assaulter setup, I don't believe that's where the Flux Raider really shines. It shines as a concealability option, as an option to get to a primary, as a smaller primary. It's something that can fill a role as a primary in certain situations. Think home defense, think something in your car, think something in your bag, where it can fill a lot of the roles that a much larger weapon would fill in a much more compact package. So in general, I don't think it's that big of a deal, in the fact that I wasn't really planning on running a suppressor most of the time in the first place, but if it's an issue for you, there you have it. So in all the thousands of rounds that we put through the Flux Raider, we've had zero issues. The weapon hasn't jammed up. It simply ran, because they are well made, they are well sprung, and they work well. So this thing is an absolute hammer when it comes to shooting. It's fast, and especially when you put in some type of fire control unit that is quick, such as something from the Legion line, you have a very quick trigger, you have a very quick weapon. As you can see in the videos when I'm shooting, the weapon really isn't recoil. That's also due to the compensator, but even the agency slide didn't recoil at all. It's a very well-balanced system. So of course, the MP5K did have the lowest recoil. It is also almost double the weight. In addition to that, is using a roller delayed system compared to the short action recoil system that we have on the Flux Raider. So that makes absolute sense. At the same time, it is not nearly as small or as light. So we have both systems right here, about the same size without a suppressor, but the weight is a huge difference. Now, when it comes to the comparison between the TP9, which is heavier, and the Flux Raider, I did find that the Flux Raider was actually easier to shoot and was easier to keep on target. And even more importantly, compared to both the TP9 and the MP5K, had a significantly better trigger. And that's due to the fire control unit that I put into there. The TP9 trigger is kind of what it is, which is really terrible. The MP5K trigger that we have has actually been gassed up by a couple different companies and is super fast. But despite that, the Flux Raider is still faster to fire and maneuver, both due to the trigger as well as the size. So moving back from the slide, the system right here, it is very interesting in terms of controls. You do have the ability to mount Picatinny on both sides right here. Obviously on this side right here, we do have an end gall. I found that in general, shooting passive, which is shooting through your night vision, looking through the optic, doesn't really work due to the space that you have from the optic to where your night vision would be. It just isn't happening. So under night vision, I've tended to fire using the LAM module itself, where I use my thumb to actuate it and turn it on and fire using the laser. Not really planning on shooting super far with it, so that has worked absolutely fine. I find that the X300 on the bottom works absolutely perfect. You can see many other people have done the same thing, such as Mike on his right here. And if we move back, the question is what's going on up here? So right here, we do have a quick magazine change. Of course, we're loaded because that's the way we roll. So when you want to do the quick mag change, there are several different ways to do it. So this is kind of getting into controls right here, but this is perhaps where the Flux Raider is interesting and also takes a little bit of practice. This isn't a weapon system that you can specifically pick up and be like, oh yeah, I'm intimately familiar with this, because it is so different from what you typically use. So when it comes to magazine changes, we have a couple different options. Right here, we have a button to release that front magazine. And when you do a half press, it's simply going to release the magazine. When you do a full press, it's going to drop the mag out of the handle, and it's going to allow you to load that up. And then if the slide is locked back, you can either drop the slide, rack the slide, or use this to also drop the slide, which I don't recommend. The reason I don't recommend that is typically when you're doing your reload, you're in the shoulder. So if you press this, release it, and you have any pressure at all on that stock, what's gonna end up happening is you're gonna end up collapsing that stock. In general, I don't use that. Flux Defense people also agree with me. They don't like it very much either. In practice, what I tend to do is once I get that magazine in, I tend to just run the top of that slide, and then I'm gonna be good to go. That is option number one. You also can use the magazine release right here, as I flip you guys off, and rip one out of your mag carrier or do whatever you need. In general, I do find that that front magazine change is awesome because it's nice to be able to retain your ammunition and to be able to keep close tabs on it. In practice, what I'm actually using this gun for is I do almost every day carry this in my backpack when I'm taking my kid to the park, when I'm going on a bike ride, because sometimes it's not very practical to carry a gun in your waistband. However, a backpack gun is awesome, and sure, I could carry a pistol, but it just feels so much more badass having this guy in here because I just feel that much more capable. In addition to that, I have two 21-round magazines, a lot of ammunition, and I feel like I can handle anything. Such as that one thing in France where the guy came in and started stabbing the kids, and all the French people are like running along. They're like, "Sacre bleu!" Like, imagine just walking out there with a, Flux Raider, be like, "Hi." Of course, moving back in our controls right here, we do have the stock release right here. So what's going to be important is that you have that clear when you release it. There's a big old spring right here that pushes that back. So if you're in any way impeding that, that thing's not gonna lock in. So if I have that it's gonna be like limp, and you never wanna be limp. So then you have to rip that out yourself. So make sure it's either clear or practice pulling that guy out yourself and getting it up. It's always important to get it up. That's our stock release, probably the coolest part of the Flux, and I think what makes it really innovative and what I like about it a lot as a conceal carry option. From there, we do have the safety. So there is a safety delete if you don't want to have that safety. I have it on. It really doesn't bother me that much, and I have no problem with it. We, of course, have our standard pistol controls, such as a slide release right there. But as you know, I tend to run the slide on the Flux Raider. Now, moving back on the Raider X, there have been a few changes. It looks much the same, but the big thing was some dimensional changes on the Picatinny. We are running an Aimpoint T2. This particular model right here is roughly modeled after what I saw from a couple unnamed unit guys who were running these. There's a lot of different configurations, which we're about to talk about. And from there, we do have the stock right here. I do find it highly comfortable. From there, we do have the stock. All the metal parts are chrome moly steel nitride lined for maritime usage, and we're gonna talk about that in just a second here. But that stock is extremely comfortable. So we've kind of gone over this quite a bit. It should be noted too that all the magazine wells are flared. It's extremely easy to get these in. I actually like this system quite a bit, and there's not a whole lot of things that I typically stick with, but for the last couple months, this has really been a go-to as far as having it in my car, having it in a backpack, or just carrying it around with me. I think this thing is absolutely awesome. And some other people who think it's awesome are different types of unit guys, and they have a couple different configurations out there. So this would be something like a more maritime configuration. So these have actually been found to be awesome for certain maritime operations, such as boarding boats, getting into small confined structures, because it's so lightweight. It's so easy to compress down and keep compact that coming up ladders with them, going into tight rooms, it has been an awesome weapon for them. So this is one place that you have seen this found within special operations. Now, due to how special operations guys work, believe me, I've tried to herd them before. It's like herding cats, but they're typically going to make changes to any type of product that's given to them. So this is one such change. Now, this one was modified by the Flux Defense guys, but this is the exact configuration that you see being run by certain guys, down to the slide, down to the optic. So let's talk a little bit about this guy right here. So we have the standard Flux Defense Raider. Now, all that has been done is the optic mount has been cut down, shaved off, and sanded down to make it nice and smooth so that you can keep your pistol optic on your weapon, and you can easily swap that out back to the M17 or the M18 that you're running and that you were issued in the military. And we do have a actual contract M17 slide right here to illustrate to you guys how this is all working. So this is a much more compact package compared to the typical Flux Raider that we have. Of course, this one's all kitted out, but these are great for certain covert operations or somewhere where you need to have something with a little bit more oomph compared to a pistol, but you still want that really compact package. Now, in practice, it's not nearly as comfortable as a typical Flux Raider, and the reason for that is you really got to dig your head down to get into the optic on this particular guy. You know, a different optic would be a little bit higher, but given the M17 optic that is issued with the M17 or the M18, that guy's low in the slide, so you're really kind of digging in there. But again, this is something that I've carried around quite a bit because it's so small. It's so easy to just kind of put it into a backpack. You can maybe fit this thing into a fanny pack, a big fanny pack. But I mean, if you're over the age of 30, it really doesn't matter at this point, man. You're not really impressing anybody. And if you are, you kind of miss the boat. So those are the two main military variations that we have of the kind of Flux Raider right here. We have our maritime assaulter option. And of course, we have our little concealed carry option right here. And you can do this yourself. Now, beyond that, what issues do we kind of have with the Flux Raider beyond suppressor usage? There's not really a whole lot. The biggest thing is going to be the learning curve of learning how to use this. People are kind of retarded the first time they use it. But a couple notes about the Raider X that I found compared to the MP17 is that the mold feels a little bit more stiff. So you have a little bit more grit kind of in the magazine releases than you typically do with the MP17. That tends to wear in after about 100 or so kind of releases. So I just kind of sat in my study just doing this over and over again, and I got it loosened up. But understand that that's not permanent at all. It's just kind of things wearing in. You should be wearing your guns and you should be using them, so this shouldn't really be an issue for you. Now, in use, how does the Flux Raider feel? The recoil is very smooth. It does take a little bit of getting used to. You got that slide kind of reciprocating. Now, it is all kind of covered, so you're not really seeing it. But it's kind of an odd feeling compared to a typical pistol caliber carbine the first time you do use it. After you get used to it, it is very, very smooth to use. It has been very quick to become one of my favorite little pistol caliber carbines, and that's with it being even cheaper than many of the ones I've typically carried, and also much lighter. So overall, when it comes to the Flux Raider, it has turned out to be one of my favorite little guns to carry and to keep with me in certain situations. The Flux Raider isn't going to fit every niche. So this brings us to the end of the Flux Raider. This has quickly become one of my favorite weapons to carry with me, to keep with me in my car, to keep with me when I'm hanging out with my kids at the park or something like that. They're just cool. They're versatile. If you have a 320, if you don't know what to do with your 320, you're scared of it, that's going to go off. I think that the Flux Raider is a great place for it to sit, and especially if you don't have an optic on it, it's a very versatile platform. Is it good for everything? No, like you shouldn't be having this as like your main, go to war gun and anything like that. But if you need something concealable that you can keep with you that can fill a lot of roles that your larger weapons could, I think this is a very good option. I think the coolest thing about it is going to be the price. If this costs as much as like an MP5 or a TP9, it wouldn't be nearly as interesting. But given the fact that this lower right here is costing anywhere from $5 to $550, and then if you already have the 320, you're good to go, and you have a much more versatile platform, I think it's kind of a no-brainer to go ahead and get the Flux Raider and shoot with it quite a bit. Point is, Flux Raider, it's not going to be for everything. It's not going to be your main weapon for go to war. It's not going to be your main boo for long range shooting, anything like that. But in certain situations, it certainly shines. So if you have a 320, this is actually something that I would recommend. I think the Flux Raider is super interesting. Get your hands on it. And I've got not a whole lot else to say about it other than I'm surprised at how much I ended up liking this gun because I really, really thought it was going to be gimmicking. So point is, guys, if you're not training with this, you're still not going to be good with it. You're still going to suck. You're still going to die. So get out there, get training, train with the boys, train on your own, pull triggers, dry fire, do all that good stuff. Ladies and gentlemen, I love you guys so much. Thank you for watching. To be clear, YouTube has tried to get rid of you guys tons of times because you say the craziest shit in my comments. Guys, go check out the Patreon. Tons of crazy stuff on there. Probably stuff to get me canceled. That's all I got for you guys. Final thing for you guys. Drink water. For real, you're probably dehydrated.